What's up, everybody? Good morning. We have more UDFAs to look at here. We have more rookie Seahawks to evaluate. And today we've got an interesting one for a few different reasons. Number one being most of us, or at least a good chunk of us, already have a pretty good idea about this one. We're talking about Jack Westover. If you watch all my streams, you know that I do weekly streams of Husky games during the college football season, so I basically streamed every snap this guy has played for the last 2 years. Well, more than 2 years, but really the last 2 years would be the years where he started to play a lot. So we're already pretty familiar with this guy. I'm familiar with him just by doing what I normally do. Even if I wasn't streaming Husky games, I'd be watching Husky games. And if I was watching Husky games, I would have seen Jack Westover develop as a player over the last several years. So we're already pretty familiar with him. And the other thing that makes this interesting is that it's very unlikely that Westover makes the 53-man roster, because we already have three tight ends. We drafted A.J. Barner, you've got Pharaoh Brown, and you've got Noah Fant. So there's no room for a fourth tight end on this roster in all likelihood, unless we want to be a team that is really, really heavy with the three tight end sets to the point where we feel like we need four guys on the roster. And based on the talent we have at the receiver position, I seriously doubt that's going to be the judgment that this team decides to utilize when constructing formations. So I don't think Westover has room on the 53-man, but I would be very surprised if he didn't make the practice squad. Hopefully he can make the practice squad, because obviously when you put a guy on the practice squad, he could be picked up by anyone at any time. But if he can make it, and he did go undrafted, so there isn't some desperate desire on the part of these other teams to get him, or else they would have drafted him. So I think that he does get down to the practice squad, and I think he does have a role on this team in the future. But barring injury, it won't happen in 2024. So I think Jack Westover is part of the long-term plan. I'll put it that way. So I feel like it's worth discussing him, because I do see him eventually making an impact on this team down the line. It's just this year, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But next year, you've got Fant and Brown coming off the books. Now, a lot of things make sense, and Westover might find himself with some actual playing time. So, Westover, tight end, University of Washington, played all 5 years of his collegiate career there. Going to be 25 in a handful of days here, so he is an older rookie for sure. Going to turn 25 before the season starts. He's also very small. He didn't do any of the drills at the combine, but he did measure. He's very short, 6'2" and 5/8 inches. So we're talking about 8th percentile. 243 pounds, that is 12th percentile. Although I will say, I think smaller tight ends are a little more acceptable these days, because tight ends tend to get used a little more flexibly now, to where being small is a little more acceptable. 32 and 1/8 inch arms is also pretty short, 16th percentile, and he's got small hands, 9 and 1/8 inch hands. So everything about this guy is on the smaller side. So he's got some stuff working against him. But those are the measurements. Let's take a look at his stats. And these first 3 years, he didn't do a heck of a lot. He was mostly put on the field for run blocking snaps. He was basically like, at that point, I guess he would have been like a third tight end. So he didn't really see a lot of action. And even though he, in 2019, played in all 13 games, he played a grand total of 80 snaps. So that is very much a part-time player. 3 targets, 3 catches, 9 yards, and a touchdown. He did get in the end zone. But that's really all there is to say. Right? 63 of his snaps were run blocking snaps. He only ran passing routes on 16 snaps total. And most of his snaps actually came in the backfield. He was 54 in the backfield, 25 as an inline tight end. So, very small sample size here. Not much we can learn. Graded out fine in most areas, but it's pretty easy to grade out fine when you're playing this little. 2020 was the COVID year, played 4 games. Did see a bigger role in those 4 games, 115 snaps, but again, it was mostly run blocking. This was This was one of the Dylan Morris years. The Huskies ran the ball a lot, and Westover would come in a lot of their jumbo packages where they would put a bunch of tight ends out there, and he would, of course, be run blocking on most of those plays. He had 1 catch for 9 yards on 2 targets. He was actually used as a running back more than he was as a receiver. He had 5 rushes for 22 yards, 14 after contact. So he was basically being used like a fullback. And you can actually see he had 51 inline snaps and 49 backfield snaps. So decent chunk of the time he's still playing out of the backfield. He starts to line up as a receiver a little bit as well. 13 in the slot, 2 wide, and graded out overall okay. Pass blocking grade was pretty good. Other than that, it's pretty unremarkable. He's not really playing enough for us to say anything definitive here. And that would continue in 2021. This was the bad year. This was the ugly year. This was the Jimmy Lake year that got him fired. Well, it wasn't really the performance that got him fired so much as a sideline altercation, but he got fired. Played in 7 games, 110 snaps, so he kind of goes back to having a very limited role, seeing not even 15 snaps a game. 9 targets, 6 catches, 56 yards. Okay QB rating when targeted, not very good, but Dylan Morris's QB rating was not very good no matter who he was targeting. Also had 1 rush for 3 yards, allowed 1 sack in pass protection, and he starts to actually run more routes, I will say that, like 58 pass routes compared to 47 pass run block reps, but still not a big role. 34 inline reps, 32 in the backfield, 37 in the slot. So a really nice split across multiple roles, and he graded out pretty badly, especially in blocking, but in all areas he was considered to be mediocre at best. So at this point, we're 3 years into his career. He's played about 300 snaps, and we don't really have a good picture of what this guy is. But then Ryan Grubb and Michael Penix and Kalen DeBoer show up, and Jack Westover's career takes a big turn for the better. 2022 plays in all 13 games, over 500 snaps, so he's actually playing a significant role. Targeted 44 times, 31 catches, so that's multiple catches a game on average. 342 yards and a touchdown. Most of that comes with yak, so he's catching a lot of things underneath and then running for extra yards after the catch. QB rating when targeted still isn't very good. I think there were a couple of interceptions on Westover targets, but as a receiver, he was pretty dang efficient. Average depth of target is about 5.8. So he's definitely a check down safety valve release option, but that's what he is. That's probably what the role he's going to occupy in the NFL as well, and he did it fairly well. 3 drops, 2 penalties, and 1 QB hurry allowed in pass protection. So those are some of the negatives. 292 routes run, 181 run block snaps, 38 pass block snaps. So decent amount of experience as a run blocker still, but mostly now being used as a receiver. He's mostly lining up in line. About half his snaps are in line. Lines up a little bit in the backfield, but that's starting to get worked out of his game. Lines up as a receiver a lot, like 230 times total. One time he lined up as a left tackle. That's kind of interesting. And most of his run block snaps are zone scheme, over gap scheme by a almost 3-to-1 ratio, actually. Graded out decently. Not considered to be a great, not graded out very well as a pass receiver, but run blocking was really good. Pass blocking was okay. So PFF likes him decently. And that gets us to his best year, 2023. Obviously, he's playing in more games, and he's getting more snaps, almost 600 snaps in 15 games, but that's a sign of a player that the team is really starting to like. That's 40 snaps a game, almost. 56 targets, 46 catches, 433 yards, so actually pretty productive. Remember, he's on a team that has 3 really good receivers in Odunze, Polk, and McMillan. So, now McMillan missed a lot of this season, which is part of the reason why he did get more targets, but you're still dealing with really good wideouts that are going to take most of the attention from the passing game. 4 touchdowns, 158 yak, so his yak actually went way down as a ratio this year. He had more yak on significantly fewer yards the previous year. QB rating when targeted was really good. Finally got evened out, 115.3. So very efficient target. 6.5 yard average depth of target. So still mostly getting targeted around the line of scrimmage, moving down the field a little bit compared to the previous year. 1 drop, 1 penalty committed, 3 hurries allowed, and 1 fumble. So definitely rounding into shape here as a player. 346 of his reps come as a route runner, 193 as a run blocker, 56 as a pass blocker. So I think there was 1 run as well. He had a 1-yard touchdown run in 1 game as a fullback, but 299 inline snaps, 13 in the backfield, 200 in the slot, 73 as a wideout. So really good mix of different things that he did when he was in the Washington offense this year. Also a little bit as a tackle. This year, more gap-based run blocking than zone, actually. It went from a pretty heavy favoring of zone to a non-trivial favoring of gap, so that's certainly interesting. And he graded out well, all around. His pass blocking was just okay, but his run blocking was good, and his passing and his route running was graded out quite well by PFF as well. So definite improvement. And that's what he has to show for himself in the best year of his career. Part of one of the best offenses in football. And this is not just some guy who catches a random pass every now and then. This is a guy who's making meaningful contributions to a legitimate elite offense. So looking at his totals, he had a pretty full career, but it was only in the last 2 years where he started playing a significant role. 52 games, but only 1,412 snaps. Got target 114 times, 87 catches, so that's a really good catch rate, right? And his catch rate was really high when he had Penix as his quarterback, so clearly something going right there. 849 yards, so he's averaging less than 10 yards per catch, which is not going to stand out, but that's the kind of player that he is. 6 touchdowns, 400 yards after the catch, so a little less than half. 103.3 QB rating when targeted. 6.3 average depth of target, so he's definitely a short yardage target. But again, that's just the way they used him. 7 rushes, 26 yards, 1 touchdown, 18 yards after contact on 26 yards total. Had 4 drops, 3 penalties, 1 sack allowed, 4 hurries allowed, and 1 fumble in his career. And I believe, I didn't write this down, but I think he had 7 missed tackles forced, which tells you something about the way that he plays, and we'll talk more about that later. But most of his snaps in his career were pass routes, 741, but he did a lot of run blocking, 560. Decent amount of pass blocking, 104 reps, 7 runs. 668 of his snaps were in line, but 166 in the backfield, 421 in the slot, 153 wide. And I can tell you this, those reps that he did wide and in the slot and in the backfield are probably more interesting to the NFL than the inline snaps are. So it's good that he's got a lot of reps there, couple reps as a tackle, and a little bit more zone run blocking than gap run blocking in his resume, but it's pretty even. It's pretty dang even. And again, this is a guy who is familiar with what Grubb is going to want to do by and large. So it's good that he's coming in with that level of experience on both sides of it. All right, so that is Jack Westover by the numbers. Let me know what you think of him. Most of you guys probably already know what you think about him because you watched him play the last several years, but I think it's painting a pretty clear picture looking at these numbers of what we are dealing with Jack Westover as a player. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think down below. See you guys soon.